Want to make sure everyone can hear me. We're going to get started. This is Welcome to Managing Stress and Anxiety During Uncertain Times. And we're going to be using Slido, so please feel free to load some Slido questions. We're going to devote quite a bit of time to Q&A, which will be great. Then we can get your questions answered. So this morning we've got Lindsay Pietsch. She is a mental health therapist. She's got a master's in mental health counseling from George Fox University. And she's been practicing for 4 years with 3 years at Cascade Centers. Please take it away, Lindsay.
Awesome. Good morning. Thank you for joining, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about managing stress and anxiety during uncertain times. I think all of us are becoming experts on that. So I'm going to be out of a job pretty soon, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a pretty abridged kind of presentation, and I want this to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to ask questions. Like she said, most of this is going to be Q&A. There were some questions that came in before all this started, and I have them here. I'm going to go ahead and when the particular slide comes up that's going to address that question, I'm going to read that question. So whoever wrote that in is going to know that's kind of the one that you might want to pay attention to, because I want to give you that specific time. When we're at the end and I start going over benefits, that's the time to go ahead and just start asking questions, whatever you find relevant, if you want some input. And like she said, you can go ahead and do Slido. If you want to send a message that's anonymous, feel free. But I want to make sure that we can address everything that you need without you feeling as though you have to necessarily put your name on it, because this isn't supposed to be necessarily like group therapy. And if you just want to hear input, that's fine too. So let's go ahead and get started. I do specialize in family and marriage. So relationship is huge. And I like to say relationship because it begins with ourselves. And once we kind of understand how to navigate ourselves easier, I'm not going to say easy or, super expert wise, but once we understand ourselves better, we're able to interact with others when there's times of stress and anxiety. So that way we can stay connected. I do a lot of narrative work. So you're going to hear me talk about words and how to define them to match our actions, which reduce triggers, reduce anxiety, reduce stress, because it's always going to be present. Some of those words are going to be the idea of support. We offer it so many times. However, we rarely ask the person we're offering it to what support means to them. When we're able to do that, that keeps us connected. And so, things like support, spend time with, love, care, listen, all those things can be very divisive, and they don't mean to be, they don't need to be. And so how do we stay connected, especially when stress and anxiety and all of our role transition has gotten pretty messy? So let's go ahead, if you can transition the first slide, and let's get started. All right, so let's talk about organizing these changes, right? Before all this happened, life didn't necessarily get easier after this happened, and wherever we were before, as far as our stress management, our resilient behavior, our self-compassionate language, maybe we weren't doing that great. And so now we're really feeling that struggle. All the isolation, all the changes, all the pressure points have really left us also feeling as though we're the only one going through our particular struggle. And while we're the only one experiencing our particular struggle, we're not alone in feeling isolated, feeling stressed out, feeling as though we are not able to manage things we normally were before, because we've never done this. I myself am a parent. I have a 9-year-old. I also work full time. I have family members, and big world, but a small location now, because we're all stuffed in our houses and everything's on top of each other. And so I've never had to do that. My son was able to go to school. I was able to go to work, and we were able to be separated at the time when we needed to pay full attention to the things that we were supposed to do. Well, now our full attention is in several different areas of literally the same house. And if it's not the same house, and say we're still going outside, we're still feeling that stress because our children aren't going to school, or maybe we've had financial changes in our home, or maybe, there's a lot of very valid anxiety that's untreatable because we have a pandemic. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have any way to treat it. So it really comes down to stress management and self-compassionate skills. I'm going to talk about this lovely word, should. Anyone that's ever heard me talk before has heard me say it, because should is one of those things in your narrative that we all have. Everyone struggled with it. I should know how to do this. I should manage my stress better. I should be able to. I should. Should is that stoplight. It's that flag in the play. It's that challenge where you can go ahead and stop your thoughts right there because it's immediately attached to shame. Shame doesn't really help us at all. What it does is it actually drags us down, and it tells us it's almost a scolding manner of what we're not doing right. Anytime I hear should, I go ahead and I immediately challenge in the moment, and this took a long time to do. So this isn't like easy. I don't expect anyone to just master this in 15 minutes. Lots of practice. I immediately say, I've never been a fourth grade teacher before, so therefore there's no way I'm going to be comfortable with it. Instead of telling myself I should know how to do this because I have a master's degree. Math is totally different. I don't know about other parents, but it is completely different than what it was before. And my son's a little bit bossy and I'm supposed to teach him. So I let him teach me. It's a humility type moment so we can stay connected. But it's a very different experience, you know, taking math and now teaching math. We have to really kind of understand what are we gaining through these moments versus losing. And that's how we can go in and start challenging this. You know, I do get to have this extra time with my child. I do get to stretch myself in areas where I may not have before. And it's not going to be comfortable. However, the benefits hopefully will be great when I come out of this, because what I'm aiming for personally, and what I hope most people are, even if it's kind of a street fight because you don't want to do it, is better stress management, better human connection, maybe self-soothing ways, you know, maybe better physical activity, better self-care, because we're required to use time in ways we weren't before. We don't have as much distraction as we used to have. We don't have as much of the typical disconnection based on being able to go somewhere that we used to have. So we're having to do a lot of organic connection. And a lot of times it's inside of ourselves. And a lot of us weren't ready for it. I'm very high functioning, and there were some things I wasn't ready for, right? But if I took all my own advice, my life would be perfect. And I don't. So therefore, I've had my own struggles too. So next slide, please. So let's talk about how we're managing workplace. If you're working from home, or if you're still going in and doing your normal out of the house activities, let's talk about where we have to kind of redefine those boundaries. Did you have great boundaries before is going to be my first question. Probably we had room for improvement, everybody, right? And so now that we're in this new zone of having to do school and work, or maybe just the isolation of not being able to be around people that we normally were, we need to talk about communication boundaries. We need to talk about physical boundaries. We need to talk about multitasking, which is a big boundary mistake people make. And there used to be a culture, I don't know how many people have had those interview questions or interview nightmares where they're like, tell me if you can multitask. Are you good at it? No, we're awful. Every single person's awful at it. And the reason why is because it lowers productivity. Psychologically, it's been proven over and over and over. I cannot literally do 25 things at one time. I can't be a teacher and also do counseling at the same time, because guess what it does? I lower my efficiency, I lower my attention span, and I lower my ability to do quality work. And then what that does is it impacts my brain, and all of a sudden I start going, I should know how to do this. I should be better. How would I just slow down and I contemplate single tasking? That's figuring out how to go ahead and build in time. So there's this concept of creating a schedule. And when I say schedule, I'm not talking like every 15 minutes, you know, an hour. How are we making time for mental health, emotional health, and physical health throughout the day? And we need to be doing that. Now, part of what we can do is for boundaries, where, you know, it was a struggle before all this happened with all my clients. You know, are you taking your lunches? Are you taking your breaks? Those are natural boundaries that are built into your day that you should, and yes, I mean that as positive shame, you should be taking them, because it's actually giving back to yourself. And they're available because as human beings, and as many studies have been done, we need a gentle reset. We need a gentle restart. We need that time away from just focusing on one thing, such as a screen all day long. Clear your head space. And then when you do one thing at a time, single task. If nothing else, think about it. Go ahead, and if you get interrupted, assess, is anything on fire? Like, how quickly do you need to be responding? Will it take you 30 seconds to finish an email? Articulate that and then move over to the next thing. It's okay to slow down during this time. We have a lot of options on where we can go ahead and feel stress. And you're going to hear me say this more than once, but we can choose what to be stressed out about. We can choose what to feel anxious about, and we can choose to make them work for us rather than us working for them. Someone said, working from home with kids from home is especially challenging. How can I manage my anxiety that I'm not giving either of them my full attention? That you're not able to, really. So use some of that self-compassionate language. When it's work time, go ahead and set aside that space. There's been a lot of good stuff written since this has happened on how to kind of set up your workspace when you are doing at-home schooling with your children. And that workspace idea, one of the ones that I really liked was being able to, if you have your workspace, I don't know what your particular area looks like, but to be able to set up kind of a stoplight system with your children. So that way they know if you're in the middle of doing something that requires your full attention, you put a red light up and they can go ahead and see the red and know unless something's on fire or it's a disaster or something horrible is happening, not to interrupt you. You can put a yellow one up, which means you can come and sit beside me and work very quietly. However, I'm not doing anything super pressing. And if green is up, it's come in, go ahead, we can go ahead and converse. Both of us can either work together or I can give you more attention than normal. And that's going to be within your work hours. So that's a big boundary thing that you can set down. We have to talk to people right now about how we want to be spending our time together with the time that we have. And it's not always want, it's also have. I have to work. I also want to be able to give you the attention that I can as best as possible. As we move through this, I'm going to talk about transition times and how we choose to articulate those, which are definitely going to relieve stress and anxiety. Let's talk about the next slide. So yeah, I'm going to talk a lot about this because it keeps coming in. So balancing when home is work and school. So where can you go ahead and cut the extra duties that you weren't necessarily able to get to, or you would normally apply pressure to yourself to get done? I mean, do you have to get it done? So how are you making your to-do lists? One of the things that I've found to be really helpful, and I don't know if people have tried this before, but you can make several types of to-do lists. There was one that I read in the Harvard Business Review, and a woman wrote in about how she was doing it as far as that self-compassionate language. You're going to hear me talk about it, and it's mindful. So she did what she called a D3 list. So one list was what can be delayed. So anything that can be delayed for that day. Next thing was what can be delegated to another person. Who can help take this load? Who's your team, right? There's a work team, and then we also have our personal team at home. So work, who can I go ahead and pass off? Maybe just something that needs a quick call back. I don't have time to do it. Who can I ask to go ahead and help you with that? Or even like, who do we have to help support some of the schooling at home? I know that we've utilized my son's father's mom, and she's been awesome to help kind of relieve some of that pressure. Or even, hey, do you mind going to the store and picking something up? Whatever needs to get done, how can you delegate it? And then the last one is it doesn't need to get done today. And it can be anything from, I mean, do you have to necessarily mop the floors today? Do you, I mean, what are you adding on that really doesn't need to get done today? This is the one time you're going to hear probably in a while, if you've never heard it before, use procrastination to your advantage. We really need that in order to maintain a semblance of feeling capable right now. Most of the time we hear that procrastination is super bad and we shouldn't do it. Only if you use it for everything. This is the time to use it for things where it actually matters. It helps us let go of guilt because we don't have the ability to do it all. We have the same amount of time and too many tasks assigned to it. That's just how it is based on where we're at now. Now, when we have more space to spread things out, such as, I don't know, other buildings and teachers involved, and maybe offices that we can go to, and where we're all separated and not on top of each other, that's creating a huge issue. You also have people that don't necessarily have children that are struggling with feeling isolated, they're feeling kind of left out or like they're absorbing more work. And so at the same time, how are you using communication skills to balance when everything's in your home as well? How are you making touch points for yourself throughout today to stay connected? Because that does increase anxiety and stress when you feel very disconnected. A lot of us took for granted having, you know, an in-office space or people that we worked around, and we had that 3-second exchange in the morning of, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. How are you? We don't have that. And it might have seemed minor, but we're really feeling not having that anymore. I don't know about everyone there, but I'm kind of sick of just being by myself or just seeing one person. Not that I don't love my child, he's amazing, but he can't possibly be everything, right? We need extra touch points. We need to feel connected. We need to feel part of a team. We need to feel supported, especially during a time when everybody has stress and anxiety that's increased, because it normalizes where we're at. If I can have the next slide. All right. So this is where I really want to talk about making time and staggering our day. So we do have the ability to stagger our day. It's just about getting creative with your time. If you have someone that's in your house to help support you with the learning, are you able to rotate work schedules, wake up later, wake up earlier? How are you going to waffle through that? Not only that, but staggering your day means, are you taking your breaks? Are you taking your lunches? How are you tapping in and out, just even your own mental and emotional self? Right now, this really takes a team effort, and we need to be telling people within our house. We need to be telling people, even if they're just friends and family outside of our house, and also people that we work with right now, what support means to us, what help means to us, what connection means to us. And by that, support might change every day if you have really high stress and anxiety. And if you have really high stress and anxiety, I say, especially between partners or roommates or any type of really close relationship where you probably see each other every day, I would suggest that you define support in the morning and support midday. And that way you can stay in touch with kind of where you're at. I know some people right now really need someone to affirm, just feeling like they're valued because we're stretched so thin. And then maybe later in the day, they really need someone to come home and help them with chores or help take something off. So support has changed, and it's been a matter of 6 hours. So how do we make time and talk about time and share what we need as far as support from that time? How do we talk to employers and people in our team to say, connecting with me throughout the day, I'm by myself, or I'm feeling isolated, or I'm feeling stressed out. I really need either, and I don't know, maybe people are sick of it, but I need either a video call or telephone call, because IM and email just isn't enough of me feeling connected. We have to talk about communication and how to connect, and making the time to do that in order for us to maintain intrinsic value in the work that we do. That's highly essential. It's difficult in general to maintain intrinsic value, but definitely during this time, it's really challenging when we have all that disconnect and it's all technology based. So next slide. So now I want to go ahead and talk about transition times. This is something that not a lot of people think of. However, we have them throughout the day. We start with them in the morning, waking up, taking a shower, getting ready for our day, getting motivated. It's very important that we maintain a schedule, not only for ourselves, but also if we have children, if we have a partner, if we have any type of routine that now the pandemic has changed because we have nowhere to go. You have somewhere to show up to, and it's called your job, or the kids have school. And we need to go ahead and maintain a schedule for transition times. So that way we can keep ourselves, if you will, trained to stay activated and to find purpose in our moment. Having purpose in our moment allows us to feel more successful, and it gives us direction. Someone said, do you have coping strategies for merging of work, kids, home environments? I miss the drive to and from work, which allowed me to easily shift between them. I love that example. It's absolutely so relevant. And that has everything to do with transition times. Now, when we talk about transition times, what's so important too is talking about how do we set the boundaries, which is communicating transition times when we don't have, as I keep stressing, that separation point, right? We don't have the distance between us. So now we're shoved into the same house. Even when I had that drive time, it's not always relaxing when you drive, right? So what I did with my own son, and I started this many years ago, so he knows, as I started thinking about how I felt in transition times that I thought of inside of myself, it's kind of crunchy. Like I would pick him up and then we would drive. I work in Lake Oswego. I live in Portland. Sometimes traffic could take an hour. It's not the same now, but it's still decent, So I don't want that to be my transition time per se, because I have to clear my mind. People don't come talk to me because they are doing great. So I've got kind of a long, emotionally draining day, and I want to be present. I was noticing I wasn't present. And so what I started doing when he was about 5 is I said, you know, for the first 30, 45 minutes when we get home, I'm going to go ahead and run or do exercise. You can color, read, play something quietly. And then after that time period, we'll go ahead and we'll play and we'll do something together. And he got into the habit, and now he knows. I'll pick him up and he'll say, first 30 to 45 minutes, you're going to go ahead and exercise or run, and then we'll go ahead and play. And I'm like, that's absolutely right. We have the ability to talk about how we want to use our time with each other, which is invaluable for using transition times. Articulate with the people around you and make it consistent. Again, this is all part of making a schedule. We think about making a schedule that we have to have, at 5 o'clock, on the dot. No. Making a schedule is creating space. And when we're able to think about it as creating space, we're able to say, this has to take place in the time that I'm going to be awake. And once that happens, I'm going to be able to feel more present and more valuable and more valued with the people that I want to stay connected with. This comes down to how we want to do physical health, emotional health, mental health, all of it. Breaks and lunches, give your brain a break. Take a second, reset yourself. That's got to be in part of your schedule. Going to the gym, maybe that's not your thing. Maybe it's too scary. Go for a run, go for a walk, do a stretch. You don't have to be athlete of the year. Olympics aren't even going to be for a while. So if you want to start training for that, that might be a thing. But do something for your body, activate yourself, create some time to also model behavior that you matter, especially if you're a parent. We have to show them first. And then they're going to say, because I know my parents did this thing. I'm one of 5. So I have a lot of people say, that sounds so nice and everything, but you have 1 kid. Yes, I do. And I know that might be more manageable, but coming from a really large family myself, my parents were able to get all 5 of us on board, and we had a pretty big age range, oldest being 12 years older than the youngest. So that's a big one, right? They said, it's quiet time. Everyone has to be quiet for 45 minutes to an hour. We don't care what you do. You need to go off into your space and do something that's not electronic and what have you. They were so consistent. Now look what's happened. Generationally, I've carried it down to my son because I understand the way to articulate time and space and how meaningful it is. It also gives me a guaranteed break. So give yourselves a break, everybody, because we need one. We absolutely need one. So that's kind of to answer that question. That's a big one. So think about how you can talk about it. If you have older kids or younger kids, invite them into the space. How do you want to use this time? This is what I want to do. What are some ideas on what you want to do? When we let people have input, again, we're going to build value in them, and we're also going to maintain our value and remain connected versus just bossing people around. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Awesome. So cultivating a healthy mindset, it's going to be reduce our worry and anxiety by limiting excess information. Again, single tasking, staying connected through talking about communication. How often do you read the news? What kind of people do you have around you? Maintaining diet and exercise. Resiliency and a healthy mindset. Also, there was, and I did say this intentionally for this slide, was I keep feeling like I have to prove how busy I'm working from home. How can I ease my anxiety? Let's use some resiliency. I should know how to do this. I should be performing at my best. No, absolutely not. Let's access resiliency by just being good enough. Nobody is doing awesome. Nobody. I mean, doing good enough is doing awesome. Telling people where you're struggling, talking about your stress and normalizing it, talking about stress with our family and with our coworkers allows it to become part of the system, not the overlord of the system. Stress should never tell us what to do. We should be able to tell it what to do. There are going to be times we're getting on each other's nerves. There are going to be times we're not going to be at our best. When it does happen, you just understand that we're all under a lot of extra pressure, and that therefore it doesn't change that we still love each other. That's an exact conversation that I've had with my son. I haven't had that exact one with my coworkers, but what I have said is all of us are in an extremely high stress environment, and fatigue levels are something we all need to be paying attention to because we're right there. So how can we keep defining support for one another? How can we keep checking in with each other? If anyone needs something at a reasonable time and you see that I'm available, feel free to check in, and if I can support you, I will. That's a nice way to stay connected, use resiliency, be transparent about your stress, meet people with also not being able to perform at your best either. That really allows us to fall into that space and lean into the discomfort as a team rather than feeling like we're the problem. If you don't really know what to do and you have a hard time regulating, see if you can do some breathing exercises. You go in through my nose, out through my mouth, much deeper than I did in, but it was a quick breath. Do it 10 times. Don't stop at 6 or 7 when you get bored. Do the full 10, you'll get the full benefit. Reframing 3 to 1. I gave you an example of that as far as the should. So instead of saying should, it's my stress is higher than it ever has been. I'm working on my skills. I've never taught school to 3 different children or 1. I'm figuring out how to be a teacher. At work, I need to talk to people about what support means to me. That way I can figure out how to stay connected and motivated. Right there, I just reframed some big stress points right there, rather than feeling like I should know how to do it. I should be a better parent. I should be able to manage all my tasks without asking for help. I don't know how those last 3 statements really served us with great purpose other than feeling bad about ourselves. Next slide. Awesome. And so we are here at Cascade. So utilize resources. I mean, you can speak to a master's level therapist. You have several different options as far as counseling and life coaching. I'll talk about it in a minute here. If you feel more anxious than normal, I mean, we're talking more anxious than normal. It doesn't go away. It's constantly in your brain, disrupting your sleep. If you have trouble focusing on your job tasks or daily tasks, that might be a warning sign. And your regulation skills begin to fail when you feel stressed. So all the stuff you had in place before is not working. Call us. We've got plenty more. We've got books and books and books and books to talk to you about. Next slide. All right. So now's the time if people want to start asking questions. I'm going to start talking about your services, but you can read it. All I'm going to be doing is reading it. So interrupt me as much as you'd like. I want to make sure that I can answer your questions. I do talk fast, but I wanted to make sure to give at least about 20 minutes for people to ask questions if they wanted to. You do get 5 counseling sessions per incident per year. And so those counseling sessions are going to be emotion-based work. How can you go ahead and sort through any type of emotional work that you want to do. A lot of people use it for crisis, they use it for family, they use it for couples, they use it for life transition. And we do try to match you with someone that takes your insurance. So if you wanted to continue and you have a diagnosis, you can stay with that provider. There's also crisis counseling. If you just reached your limit and you need to talk to somebody in the moment, call us. We're always here. You'll never get a machine or anything automated, which is crazy. You'll get a live person and they will actually talk to you and have the qualifications to do so. So please give us a call. If you find that you're struggling with maybe needing to find childcare or different resources there, we can help you with that. Elder care, if you have aging parents or you have concerns or you want any type of resource retrieval done there. We have an entire team dedicated because those things take a lot of work and they're very difficult for people to find the time. I mean, in general, but let alone now to be able to do that. There's financial coaching if you find that you need to have some financial stuff taken a look at, some budgeting, or if anything's changed or going to change, you have that. There are legal benefits, so you get 30 minutes free legal consultation. The only thing that's not included is employer-related issues, since EAPs are provided by employers. The employers don't want to pay to get themselves sued, so that makes perfect sense. There's home ownership programs, so if you want to buy, sell, or refi, you can go ahead and use our program. It saves you anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 costs. We do have EAP tools, so I love talking about life coaching, not because I don't love doing therapy, that's my #1 job, but life coaching is awesome. It's a good way if you've never done therapy or you're like, I don't really have a lot of emotional stuff to talk about. Life coaching is a goal-based service done by a master's level therapist. A lot of people use it for if you're like, hey, I want to build in mindfulness, I want to work on more assertive communication, I want to work on stress management. That's perfect for life coaching. You get 3 of them and they're 50-minute sessions. They've always been done over the phone and we're still doing them. So it's a great start for people. There's also gym membership discounts, pet parent resources, and then Cascade Personal Advantage, which is our website. If you wanted to look on there, there's a bunch of webinars, assessments, forms, tutorials, a lot of different things. It's a pretty cool website. And then the next slide I was going to talk about our app. I'm not a big person to push a lot of apps, but our app's actually really cool. When you download it, you'll create a login and everything else that it asks you to do, and then it'll come up with this quick survey that you answer. It's totally confidential. It follows all the HIPAA regulations, and you'll fill it out. It takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, and then it'll pop up with your areas of opportunity and how you can use your benefits that are provided by Cascade Best. There's also a bunch of mindfulness on there. Next slide, I think, shows what you're going to use as far as your code. So the state of Oregon or PEB is what you'll use to sign in for that. So that way it comes up with all your benefits. And so we do have an app. So if you're nervous, you don't necessarily know what you would call for, that's kind of a good starting point as well. Or if you just want to get some good techniques for mindfulness, breathing, anything like that. There's a really good resiliency section as well that I like. Resiliency is one of my top values I like to function under. It's also one of the most difficult things to master. So again, self-compassionate language there, right? Constant. So that's kind of what I have. If people have questions, feel free to ask. I am here and able to answer as they come in.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, we've actually got a few questions in Slido.
Sure.
I'm going to start with one of them, though. That's a comment. Someone just said EAP was wonderful when she felt stuck in the grieving process after losing her mom.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very helpful to hear that it can really help people with what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, let's see. How do we manage stress around the nation not being united and taking the pandemic seriously, with too many seeing a conspiracy, not acting safely for all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an untreatable struggle, unfortunately, because we can't make everybody, and this is going to be before the pandemic, after it, we just all don't, unfortunately, view crisis and health standards the same. And it's very, very, very challenging, to say the least. I wish I had the magic bullet for that, honestly. We can't convey gravity to people. I was a philosophy minor in college, and boy, that's quite the room to be in. I cannot imagine what those classes look like now. It's really just understanding your boundaries, how you want to keep yourself safe, the people around you, and really advocating for yourself and picking and choosing. Unfortunately, times like these, myself included, means that we're just going to have to isolate even further. And that's a horrible feeling. However, it's what I deem to be most safe for my person and my family and what I've chosen. And the people that value me are going to respect that. And if others want to flagrantly disregard what I deem important, there's not much control I have over that. We have enough conflict in society right now if we can reduce it by not interacting with useless, meaningless conversation, because we're not going to agree. Just keep people around us that do, and that way we can feel supported as we continue. That's a tough one.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lindsay, though. That really helps, I think. All right, managers are not taking breaks and lunches, working longer hours and handling more than ever. Fatigue is real. Easily daily, the norm is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Do you have any advice about that?
Absolutely. So as managers, so I'm a manager of a 9-year-old person, right? So part of my job is to model behavior, and we need to be able to carve out that space. If we want everyone else around us to be able to take that self-care, we have to model it. So understand that you come first in line, because there's this thing called a pyramid, and it's a hierarchy pyramid, right? We don't use hierarchy naturally to just use oppression. We use hierarchy naturally to model behavior that's appropriate for people to follow. And so talk about that as a team. Talk about that even with your own manager. I feel this adds integrity to my team, and not only that, but it makes my intrinsic value I build into my team more honest, because I can't be like, you really need to be taking care of yourself, and then run yourself ragged. They're going to call you out, or they're going to take advantage of it, and you deserve to be treated well as well. So what are appropriate office hours? How can you go ahead and trim the fat? Who do you need to talk to about how to change that? We have to talk about using our time. We have to model behavior. Our managers were really cute for the admin side. They didn't do it to me because, well, you can't really, being a therapist. But they went in for the admin people, and they put breaks in their calendars to make sure. And they also put them in their own, so that way everybody could see that everyone's taking them. So that might be a nice start, model and follow.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and actually just to go along with that, someone said so much has been put on managers that it has come to the point of exhaustion. It's not a balance anymore. So it's, yeah, modeling the behavior, very helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so how about knowing that stress and anxiety are increasing for a lot of people right now? How do you know when it has gotten to the point where you should seek medical help?
If you even think you're at the point where you should seek medical help, you should make an appointment with your doctor. Absolutely. Because that's your body and your mind kind of coming together, which, you know, I don't know if anyone's familiar with like the body keeps the score. It's about trauma. However, our body will manifest and our brain, when it goes into overload, will begin to break down. So are you not sleeping? Are you sleeping too much? Are you using unhealthy coping mechanisms? Are you short-tempered? Are you irritable? I would go and either go on our website or go and download our app and see where you rate on stress and anxiety. See what it comes up with, because you can take very, very quick assessments. And if they're high and in the red, absolutely. Call us. We can also do a quick assessment over the phone. Just talk to us. You don't have to tell us necessarily who you are. People do it all the time. And we might say, you know, you need to contact a PCP and make an appointment. They're all virtual, and just say, hey, you're not alone. I've seen more people that were like, I haven't been on anti-anxiety or antidepressants in like 10 years, and it's gotten to the level where I'm there right now. So it's very common, especially if we're working longer, we're not eating great, we're not exercising, we've lost a lot of coping. So self-compassionate language says, I need to just figure out how to do the best I can with what I have, and that's going to be good enough, just good enough.
Definitely, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we have a comment and question. I see way too much of my spouse now. Working from home, living together means we get no space from each other. Yeah, definitely. We like each other, but it's causing some anxiety. Do you have any advice on, yep.
Absolutely. Oh, I love the love like, but I don't love you and like you that much. Yeah, absolutely. Have fun with it. Be like, you know, we love each other. This is, you know, it's too tight of quarters. So go ahead and create, block out some time for just alone time. Talk about how you want to use your space. I need to go ahead and have this time to myself. Can you go out and take a walk? Just really talk about the tight quarters, come up with a plan. Again, it's part of that concept of making, you know, creating a schedule. And there's schedule for alone time. And I don't mean like from 2 to 3, unless that works. But at some point during the day, I'm going to go ahead and need some time by myself. What works best for you? This is what works best for me. How do we both get what we want? And then we come back and we reconnect. Because like I said, we can't do it. Even my son the other day was like, we are getting on each other's nerves. And I was like, I know, separate rooms, we'll see each other in an hour. And it was great. So absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, and this is actually related. Someone said my team came up with a code word for when they're struggling to say it out loud without hurting feelings, and acknowledging can be helpful.
Absolutely. Safe words are real. My son and I say you're on the last nerve. So absolutely.
I like that a lot. All right. How do managers distinguish between COVID performance versus other performance issues?
Oh, that's such a good question. Absolutely. If you have any questions about that particular issue, we do manager consults. Call us in as a manager and ask to speak with one of the therapists, and you'll probably get one of us on the phone, and ask us to assess that particular situation. And then we can go ahead and talk to you about what's most appropriate, how it does present, because there's lots of things that go with COVID. There's going to be stress, anxiety, compassion, fatigue, burnout, and we can help break down how it's presenting. And also, if it's the overall team, some skills and tools and tips on what to give them. And if it's one individual, kind of how best to manage that one particular person.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, someone, they worry about their kids' stress. Are there common indicators we should look out for in our children?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody's under stress. What I love to do in my own little family of me and him is normalizing stress when it's not a stressful time. So talking about stress as part of the system is essential, right? So with him, I also have a book that I'm going to hold up in a second here. But with him, what I would do is I would say, you know, this is a time, I think we were like outside. I've done it twice. Once we were like playing video games, which is extremely stressful. But the other is I don't like video games. I do it with him. So first, it's modeling avoidable stress. So when I would get very stressed when we would play video games, I would say, I'm going to give this one more try. I'm feeling really stressed out, and I'm going to put it down because this is avoidable stress. He's 9. 2 weeks ago, he was playing the same video game, and he said, I'm going to give this one more try. I'm feeling really stressed out. If I don't get it, I'm going to put my controller down because it's avoidable stress. And I was like, what 9-year-old puts their controller down? I won. Model the behavior. Talk about stresses that you're in control of it. The other thing is to talk about it as everybody's really stressed out right now. We might snap at each other. We might get on each other's nerves. We might find that we're short-tempered. Doesn't mean we love each other any less. It's just going to happen. So when it does, they feel secure and they know that it's part of it and they understand it rather than feel afraid. I also have, and I love this for children. I use it myself. I don't know if you can see that. It's called A Sloth's Guide to Mindfulness. And it's a little meditation book, super easy to read. And what it does is it talks about all the feels and it talks about what to do with them. And it helps kids and adults normalize stress and anxiety and where to put it. It is the best little book. And when you get done with it, you feel super relaxed. Sometimes I use it in between clients just to give myself a nice gentle reset. So if you're not using your breaks, everybody, use your breaks and read this book. It'll take you 10 minutes. It's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be buying that book.
I love it.
And someone commented about the struggle bus. Yeah, we've all been on that struggle bus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you mind saying the name of the book one more time?
Yeah, A Sloth's Guide to Mindfulness.
Sloth's Guide to Mindfulness. Awesome.
Yeah. I love it.
Any suggestions for helping your employees and coworkers manage stress?
Yeah, absolutely. So, touch points, ask them what they need as far, let's define support. I'm curious how I can best define, support with you. I'm curious what you need right now. Talk about communication touch points. How do you want someone to be talking to you? Is it video? Is it phone? That helps with connection. It's very important to let people come in. I like to use what I call invitational language. An invitational language always opens with, I'm curious. I'm curious how I can help you. I'm curious what you need right now. I'm curious where you're struggling most. When we do that, we're able to normalize it. We're not saying, I've noticed, or you're doing this, or you're falling short. We allow them to bring experience to us and it stays connected. And if we are able to support them, then we go ahead and we extend even further. And if not, we say, we also have an EAP program that might be an awesome resource for you because they're professional at helping with stress and anxiety.
Awesome. Yeah. And someone just said they share their office space and they have an invisibility hoodie. So if someone wears the hoodie, you can't hear them and they're not there. You can't see them.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm gonna write that one down for sure. I love people. I love when people teach me things.
All right. Yeah, we have time for probably there's just 2 more here. Let's see. My stress is around health conditions and age that puts me at risk if I'm infected. Working at home helps a lot, but the worry persists with limited contacts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how are you able to stay connected and articulate, what you need as far as comforting to stay connected to people? I know I have several of my friends, including myself, we live by ourselves, so it's talking. And while I don't have the age and that particular, I'm still afraid of health risks as well. So it's, one of my friends, and we're all on Zoom. A lot of us are therapists. So we're like, I know more videos. Like, I just need a phone call once a week. Can you carve out about 45 minutes to an hour so I can talk? If it's once a week, we got plenty of stuff to talk about an hour. So use your team, use your people around you, extend yourself. Right now, it's absolutely okay to use vulnerability to talk about loneliness. You are not alone. To talk about feeling scared, you're not alone. To talk about how you need to feel connected, how you need to feel, wanted and valued. We're all suffering from it. So it's scary. Vulnerability is the emotional trust fall. It absolutely is. There is a time and place to use it, and now is a good one. So figure out who you're comfortable doing that with.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, and this is related. Someone said stress is high. I feel better after a good cry. I'm thinking,
Is that normal? Yes, cry it out. Do it all the time. I say when the cries come, do it. Let's not get hysterical. Otherwise, what happens is you wind up in Rite Aid staring at aspirin, crying for no reason. Those are the old cries, so let the current cries out. We don't even need to know where they come from. I do it all the time. I don't really care where it's from. I just love that it's out. So yes, do it.
thank you so much, Lindsay. Do you have any closing comments for us?
If you need us, we're here. Feel free to please sign up for services if you find that you just want more tips, you know, more management. I love all the input and that people taught me things. The invisibility hoodie was super awesome. I'm totally going to use it. Articulate how you want to use the time with people around you. Set it up. You don't have to just do it in the moment because you're all smushed together. So let's create some space boundaries and time boundaries, and you're going to definitely reduce your anxiety and stress. All right.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.